Hello, lovelies, amazing business owners. Welcome back to another episode of Business Straight Up. Can I just take a second and say it has taken 2 months since we all went into lockdown that I feel like we finally have a little bit of a schedule and I can get things done and it feels amazing. So I hope that you are in the same place and moving forward in this crazy, crazy time that we're in. And today we are going to dive into website stuff, and this will actually continue for the next couple of weeks because, hey, your website matters. This stuff is super important for a business, and I know from so many messages and emails from students that websites are something that you need help with. So we are diving in. Today's episode features an amazing copywriter who specializes in writing copy for creative businesses. And can I just tell you how important your messaging is and how much this information matters? It is so underrated and is something that needs to be discussed more and more. Kimberley Anderson is the genius behind Red Crow Creative, and today we are going to talk about common website mistakes, why copy for your website is different than other writing and marketing, 3 things that you have to convey on your website, and a secret weapon that you already have in your business that can be a huge wealth of content for you when you don't know what to write. Yes, you heard me right. You most likely already have this in place in your business and you can pull so many stories out of it. Kim really stunned me with that one. What an amazing idea. And we also go into why redheads are amazing, but that's a whole nother side note. If you haven't done so already, can you please head on over to iTunes and leave a review? The reviews help me to know exactly what you need more of, what you want to hear more of so that I can serve you in amazing ways. And they also help to get amazing guests on board too. Once you leave a review, screenshot that review, send it on over to hello@businessstraightup.com so we can send you a super special gift that is only available for podcast reviews. The gift is still being finalized. It's not quite ready yet, so I don't want to give too much of a spoiler, but we are keeping track of those reviews and those emails, and we will be sending it out in the month of June. So go ahead, hit pause, do it now, and then come back because seriously, this episode is going to blow you away. Let's get real for just a moment here. I am going to share a very unpopular opinion in my industry, and today's episode is brought to you by Spiff Up Your Site, my website strategy course, because truly the biggest mistake that creatives and photographers make is thinking that learning another lighting technique or buying new gear or new tools or presets or software will bring them success in their business. And I get it. I did it too. New toys are always fun, right? I mean, we did that when we were little. It doesn't change. But I wanted to really make a living with my creative business and not just have fun toys. So let me ask you, does every creative business owner or photographer that runs a successful business go out and immediately buy all the new things? Of course not. If you continue to hold on to the belief that fancy gear or the next new shiny object will help, not only will you not book the clients you want and need, but you might even have to shut down your business completely and go back to working for someone else and get that dreaded job. So, how do you grow your creative business to design your life without working yourself into the ground? You start focusing on the business side of running a business. And one of those foundational elements is your website. Your website should be your business home on the internet. It is your handshake to the world and should be your best performing employee, bringing you visitors that turn into leads, that turn into dream clients. Which brings us to the big question. Do you really want to keep chasing that fancy new light that you've been eyeballing for a while? Or do you want to learn how to use your websites to book the clients that will actually pay you so that you can pay to keep your own lights on? Good question, right? Spiff Up Your Site, my website strategy course, opens for enrollment in June 2020. Do not miss out on the free class that's available. Head on over to businessstraightup.com/creative websites to register and learn the 3 things you must have to actually book clients from your website. Because it's time to say goodbye to website shame and those half-assed websites that people are always apologizing for. No more. It's time to turn your website into your best performing employee. So head on over businessstraightup.com/creative websites to learn more. Hey there, awesome people. I am Brooke Summer, and you are listening to Business Straight Up, the podcast for creative entrepreneurs to learn, connect, grow, and build the business and life that they dream of. Welcome, let's get going and dive right in. Welcome back, amazing business owners, entrepreneurs, creatives, all the people. I am so glad that you're with us today. Today's guest is someone that I have just recently been introduced to, and I loved her information so much that I had to have her on the podcast. Kimberley Anderson is a copywriter with Red Curl Creative and a photographer, and she works with wedding and event professionals. And basically, she teaches us all how to find the best words to talk about what we do. And you all know how passionate I am about sharing the things that you don't think are interesting, because our clients want to know more about us, especially when we approach sharing in a way that's engaging. Thank you so much for being here today, Kimberley.
Oh, I'm so excited. And I love somebody who loves to share. So that's great.
Right? So many, it's so funny. I just taught at WPPI in my marketing class, and so many people are like, I don't have an interesting life. I'm boring. And I said, you would be so surprised by what people find interesting.
Oh my gosh. One of the most popular emails that I sent out in the last year talks about how much I like cardigans.
Yes.
And it's like, I didn't think everybody was as passionate about cardigans as I am, but I was wrong.
Yes. And so many people don't understand that some of these like seemingly small things really matter.
They do. I mean, people are fascinating, right? I mean, you think about even like celebrities when you learn something about them. And I think that's what people get hung up as. They're like, well, I'm not that interesting. I'm just a mom, or I'm just a photographer. But there is something interesting about you, and it's why you're a creative. I mean, I don't think it's possible to be not interesting and be a creative.
Right? Absolutely. One of my most opened emails was about how I had been on medication for a year, that I gained a ton of weight, and then I lost it very quickly, and I had saggy skin. And so many people wanted to hear about that. And I'm like, really? It just seems so silly, but it's so important to share these things about ourselves with our clients, potential clients, and visitors, so that we're human.
Exactly. I mean, we all want to find what we have in common. It's what binds us as, people. And when, someone reads that, someone likes cardigans or someone has saggy skin and they have that same thing going on, it immediately creates this little like kind of bond between the two of you. And when that happens, trust goes way up.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I know we're going to get into all the amazing copy things, but before I get there, because I have a little bit of ADD, I kind of go all over the place. Tell me a little more about you. How did you get to where you are? What has moved you into being an artist that now works with other artists? And just because I think that this question cracks me up, how has being a fellow sassy redhead benefited you in your business?
Well, the redhead part, I have to thank my mother for. Yeah. But I have noticed it's so funny lately. Everyone who's come into my life, I'm like, "Oh, you're a ginger. We're gonna get along good." So, but how I got here, it's always such an interesting story. And when I'm talking to people about their copy, I often tell them, you don't need to start at the beginning. You can jump in right to the middle. That part is sometimes even more interesting. Mm-hmm. So I'll do that. I'll kind of jump to the middle. In 2016, I decided that I had been shooting weddings for 20 years, and that was about 20 years enough. And I walked into a room, and there was this middle-aged woman, and she looked at me and she said, "You look very familiar." And that happens to me all the time. I have one of those kind of Midwestern faces. And I looked at her, and she did not look at all familiar to me. She looked like a middle-aged woman. And but I was nice. And eventually she came up to me and grabbed me at the reception, and she said, "We went to high school together." I
really?
went, yeah, and she was the bride's mom. And I was like, "And I'm out."
Oh my gosh.
I had been kind of, realizing that as much as I loved shooting weddings, 20 years was a pretty good career. And I didn't want to be doing it when I was 60 or 70. And so I started at that point to think, what can I do? Like, what else could I do?
Yes.
And I think a lot of people feel that way at some point in their career. And the answer is there's lots of things you can do. So I literally decided I was going to stop being a photographer in 2016. So it was 2014 that I made this decision. I gave myself 18 months and I had no idea what I was going to do afterwards. And as I started, thinking about other careers, someone said to me, well, what is something that people turn to you for all the time? And I said, well, emails. Like whenever someone gets an angry email from a bride or they don't know how to say things, they come to me.
Yes.
And so I started like looking up jobs. Like what would that job be like? Was it like a Dear Abby? I mean, what is that? And then one day it was like, well, you're a copywriter. And I was like, okay, that's what I am. And literally I flipped the switch.
Wow.
One day I was a photographer and the next day I just went on Facebook and I put my website URL up and I'm like, so y'all, I'm a photographer, a copywriter now, and I write for photographers. And that was it. And,
wow.
And I stayed in the niche of photography and in the wedding sphere, except for one very brief and painful year that I wrote blogs about mold. But I realized that it was what I knew best. I understood the industry. I understood, the pain points of everyone. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the story there. The beginning part I didn't tell you about was just the 20 years of being a photographer, which, you all know the story of that, probably similar to what you have. So
yes, it's so funny to me that in our industry in photography, that like every other industry, people move on, right? Like you grow
right.
and you change. But in our industry, there's this idea that if you can't run a business, you teach instead. And I have come across so many amazing creatives where that is absolutely not the case.
And it's, it used to be even a bigger stigma. I think now it's easing a little, but, the whole like anger against photographers who teach, and how dare they? And,
oh my gosh.
That was a couple of years ago. And I remember when I started thinking about how I wanted to maybe teach, I was really put off by that.
Me too.
No, I don't care. Now I'm like, well, whatever, you do you,
right.
Because there are so many things you can do, but it is overwhelming because on paper, if anyone's gone through this recently with the whole, applying for unemployment, like literally when they ask you what they do, when I filled out what I did, they're like, no matches.
Right? Yes.
They're like, can you work in a dark room? I'm like, well, I could. I don't think I barely remember, but I could. So I'm answering all the questions that are like, changing film, and they're all very corporate and things like that. And at the end it said no matches. And I thought,
yes,
this is how our brains work. Like we don't realize that just because you've been a photographer doesn't mean that if you've run a business, you have so many skills.
Yes.
Just figuring out which one of those skills you want to take off with.
Yes. And I think that's key too, is figuring out which one of those skills you want to take off with. So many people do things because they feel like they have to.
Like writing about mold.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. Well, there are so many things that I want to ask you about because I know the importance of amazing copy, but I'm going to start here because it's kind of the foundation. And I know that the word copy for me used to incite visions of terrible machines that never worked when I was in the corporate world.
Uh-huh.
But when you're a business owner, it means something else entirely. So what is copy and why do words matter when it comes to our website, social media, and just all of our messaging?
Copy just means words. It just means the words on your website, on your social media, in your emails. And it's a little misleading because when people talk about copy, that's the fancy word. And especially when you talk about copywriting versus copyright with photographers, that's two completely different things.
Yes.
So I try to really boil it down for people. I'm like, I write the words that go on your website. Mm-hmm. And that seems to make more sense. When it comes to websites, it's a very different kind of writing than would be in your social media or in a newsletter or an email to your client. When it comes to websites, we're really talking more about conversion copywriting. And that's difficult for a lot of creatives because they fall in one of two camps usually. They fall in the, I don't know what to say, so I'm going to put my pretty pictures up here and say as little as possible camp.
Yes.
Or they fall into the, I'm going to word vomit every single thing I want you to know. there's 4,000 words and 23 links. And there needs to be a little bit of a dance between the two. And here's the other really bizarre thing is in the last 2 years, copy has radically changed on websites. It's gone to so bare bones. Like if you go to some of these really popular, elopement photography is the big thing right now. You go and you look at these websites, there is so little words on the websites, but the words that are on there are just amazing. They evoke imagery and they make you want to contact them and they make you want to know more. So part of what I spend a lot of time doing is cutting out words and trying to figure out how to say more in the smallest amount of space possible. So That's the big challenge with website copy for most people.
Well, in conversion, like let's kind of go back to that a little bit because one of my top classes that I teach is websites that convert. And so many people don't understand that your website should be turning visitors into inquiries, into clients. Your website is not just a billboard of what you do. Like you really want to incite someone to contact you. So that copy is so incredibly important when it comes to making that switch from visitor into inquiry and then into client.
Yeah, you are completely right. It is. And that's a perfect way to put it. It's not a billboard for your work. And that's where I think a lot of photographers especially fall down because that's where their head is, right? Like they're making these beautiful images. And what they don't realize is there's a lot of people making beautiful images.
Yes.
I don't know if you've heard, Brooke, that the photography market's kind of saturated.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
If they're going to 10 different websites and they're seeing gorgeous photos on every single one of them, the words are what are going to make the difference. And so many times with the conversion part, going back to that, I go to a website and I click on it and I look at it and I say, what do you do?
Exactly.
Well, I make timeless imagery for people who want their memories created, captured, and they want their children to never grow up. And I'm like, but what do you do?
Yeah. But what does that mean?
Yeah, I'm a photographer. Okay, it doesn't say that anywhere on here. I mean, it can be as simple as that. And it's breaking it down like crazy to just what you do, what you love, and who you serve. And it can be hard, but it just takes a little bit of time really drilling down to who you want to reach.
Yes. And that ideal client, it's so funny. When I started my podcast, my very first podcast episode is about the ideal client profile because I knew that I would reference it a million times and I needed to remember that it's number one.
Right.
It is so crazy important.
That's very smart. Yeah.
So before we keep going, I wanted to share something that you put on Instagram because it is so important and it really made me kind of chuckle, and it's just a mic drop moment for sure. And it said, if you can't sell me on what you do with your words, your competitor might. And I was like, bam, there it is.
Yep.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I was just going to say, I was not the best photographer in the world. I am the first to admit that. I was a pretty good photographer, but I was really good at convincing people that I was an amazing photographer.
Yes. Well, and that connection really matters. How can we use words to better connect with our clients?
You can start by being yourself, and that's hard for a lot of people who again go back to that. I don't feel like I'm a very interesting person. And that's okay. Like not everyone has a big redhead personality like you and I do. And there was a client that I wrote copy for, and the first thing she said to me was, I'm really shy. I'm not outgoing. I'm not like you. Like, how can you make my copy sound like me, but still be interesting? And I'm like, but you are an interesting person. Like, you're really insightful and you're really, and as we drilled down into it, the clients that hire her are very much the same. They're very private people. And so we spun her copy is that, because she's shy and a little bit more, introverted, that she's able to capture moments that nobody else ever sees.
Yes.
Because, so it starts with being you, talk to people in the way that you would like to be talked to. Now you do have to learn again, going back to the conversion thing, you do have to learn not to be too wordy. But if you can connect to your ideal client, if you can figure out who that is like half of the battle. And I'm so glad you said that, because that is what most people do not do. They don't do what I call the woo-woo work. You know, you got to do the woo-woo to figure out who you're talking to, so that when you do talk to them, it doesn't feel weird and stilted and like you're, a hashtag boss babe.
Oh my gosh, yes. I feel like immediately I keep saying authenticity is not just a buzzword.
Yeah, for sure.
Because everyone says it right now.
You can't fake that stuff. At least I can't. Like, I could maybe do it for a couple days, but after a while, I'm not going to be interested in keeping up that facade of somebody I'm not.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, it's exhausting being regular me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Before I decided to specialize in boudoir, I would try and be all the things to everyone, right? I did weddings and families, and I like to swear, and it doesn't go over very well with toddlers. I mean, it does with my toddlers.
It wouldn't in my house, but that's okay.
Right? Like my kids know, but I was trying to be all the things to everyone. And finally, when I started specializing in boudoir, and that's part of the reason that specializing works so well. And you don't have to specialize, but damn, when you can really be your best self and who you really are, your business will soar.
Totally. And, and that was a big hang up of mine. Part of it was like, I don't want to be serving the same industry because I'm tired of that industry.
Yes.
But once I took a step back from that and realized, no, like when people come to me, they don't have to explain a lot about what they do, because I know, and yes. I can ask them leading questions, about their business that they might not even have thought of to bring into their copy. And sometimes it doesn't get into their copy at all. Sometimes it's just me getting into their brains a little bit, and seeing how they tick.
Definitely. What are 3 top mistakes that you see when it comes to someone's copy on their website?
Number 1, no location on their website.
Oh my gosh, that makes me stabby.
Where are you?
Okay. Right? And people are like, but I'll go anywhere. And so I don't want to just keep myself in this box. And I'm like, girl, they need to know if they can have a cup of coffee with you, or if you're in freaking Iceland when they're in Wisconsin.
Correct. And like I tell people, if you don't have on your website where you are, Google doesn't know where you are either.
Exactly.
So when Susie Who Wants Boudoir goes and types in Denver boudoir photographer, do you think she's going to find you? No, you're not even going to come up anywhere close. So
right?
That's the big one, your location, and not just place. There's a lot of different Madisons in the world. Madison where? Madison, Wisconsin, Madison, Tennessee. Somewhere in your text that needs to be there. Totally fine if you want to say you serve other locations, but you have to have that on there.
Yes.
Second would be the vague thing that I said, where I can't tell what you do within 2 seconds of landing on your page.
Yes.
Oh, there's pretty photos here. But are they yours? Also, and I would say for me, the other thing that drives me crazy, and this is a little bit of a grammarian in me, is I hate when people switch tense on their website, when they go from I to we.
Oh, yes.
We is, to me, infers that there's more than one of you. So if you are saying, we are Denver's top studio, I'm going to assume, as a uneducated person who doesn't hire a boudoir photographer a lot, that there are several photographers yes. on your staff, right? That maybe you have a studio, or it also, when you use the we, it distances you from people.
Yes.
It's, whenever you're talking like the queen, it's going to put up a little tiny bit of a barrier between you and your clients. So make sure when you go through, you're not switching back and forth, because that causes a lot of confusion for people.
Yes, definitely. I agree completely. And yeah, we did 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I was counting as I was writing.
Yep.
If you could encourage creatives to include 3 of the most important pieces of copy on their website, what would those 3 pieces be?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay. Number 1, you're about me. Your about me should be interesting, It should be short. It should tell a story, and it shouldn't sound like everyone else's.
Yes.
Here's a news flash I want you guys all to know. Everybody likes coffee. It is no longer cool or interesting. Let people know that you are fueled by caffeine.
And trips to Hawaii.
And trips to Hawaii and yoga pants and puppy dogs and
Right.
lattes and margaritas. Really. If you have to include some of those cute little things, and it's not that they're not interesting, it's just that, it's become overdone.
Yes.
And so you need to tell a story, and you need to tell them why you like to serve them.
Yes. I agree completely. The About page is so crazy important. It is my second most visited page on my website, behind only my homepage.
Absolutely. And it is for most people.
Yep.
The other thing I think is super crazy important is to have cornerstone blog pieces on your website.
Yes. So I know what Cornerstone is, but I know a lot of people won't. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. It's a blog post that gives helpful information to the reader. They are also what we call evergreen, meaning they would never go out of style, right? So an example of this would be my top 10 favorite places to do engagement photos in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would give a breakdown of each place. You would talk about things like why you love it, what your favorite season is to shoot there, parking's like, are there any permits needed? These are meaty articles, and they can take a while to write.
Mm-hmm.
But you can commit to doing 2 or 3 of those a year. Not only will it help with SEO, it will absolutely help you with repurposing. When you come to that day where you just have nothing to say on social media, you can go and grab one of them and be like, hey, I just shot a session at this place and this is why I love it. Copy, paste, go. So they do a ton of double duty for you in terms of repurposing. You can send them to new clients, like, who ask about engagement sessions. Hey, check out this blog post I wrote. They're just so good to do. And they also kind of position you as an expert in what you do.
Definitely. And dare I also kind of throw in another SEO thing in there, is that you can do a roundup page that lists all of them too. And it can be killer for your SEO.
Killer. I have one client who she is a queen at that. And she's got every single blog post linked up to, she's got a whole page about church weddings and why church weddings are great. And each blog post links to that. And that is that's gold right there.
Yes.
It takes some time, and that's why when people say, oh, blogging is dead, I'm like, no. Now, things that you do about your sessions, granted, SEO wise, they're not as important. That's really more of like your billboard, like you said.
Yeah.
They're important for your clients, and they do give your website fresh content. So that's great. But those cornerstone pieces are going to pay off over time.
Absolutely. So we have the About page, the cornerstone pieces, and what is number 3?
This is going to sound weird, but your contact page.
Okay. What would you love to see on Creative's contact pages?
I love a fun contact page. And by fun, I mean just little bits of words. And I'll give you an example of one the other day. I popped onto the website and they had a little tiny bit of microcopy came up, which basically said, this site uses cookies. Is it okay to use cookies? And you click yes or no. But they put cookies. And that amused me.
Yes.
Right away, I thought, oh, they're funny. This is a cute site. Excuse me.
Yes.
And so for contact pages, what I tell people is make it a little interesting, and also don't ask them for their life story. Don't have 14 drop-down menus. Nobody's got time for that. You just want their name, their email, and maybe their phone number.
Right.
And, but if you can make your contact page kind of a little bit more fun, like, I can't wait to meet you. We can sit down and virtually high five, or just something like that. And then when they fill out that information, they get an actual email that's interesting. Not just like, thank you, we'll be in contact for 24 hours. I mean, an actual branded, And again, I'm going to go back to the Cornerstone blog thing. You can incorporate those in there. You can be like, I'm so excited to hear from you. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. In the meantime, check out this blog article I wrote. Look at these pretty pictures I wrote. Whatever it is you want to do, that really sets you apart, because I have tested quite a few photographers' websites, and I would say less than 20% of people do anything interesting beyond whatever is in their CRM.
Yes. Well, and the CRM or whatever you use to respond to those contact messages can start a whole sequence that basically introduce someone to you. It's like kind of like online dating where you get to send messages back and forth before you actually meet.
Exactly. Kind of like swiping right or whatever is that? Swiping
right
or another.
I don't know. I'm married. I'm old. I don't know.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I'd have to look that up.
That's so funny. I don't teach a lot on the contact page, but I agree with you completely. Mine is actually a little funky. But I love when I see things that are different and they're unique and fun, and just kind of tell me a little bit more about them for sure.
Yeah, me too.
So you kind of touched on it earlier, and this is something that I am fascinated with. I do it all the time, and it's so funny to me when people don't. So I'm going to pivot a little bit and talk about repurposing.
Mm-hmm.
When I did the marketing class at WPPI, people were shocked when I said that I repurpose content all the time. Yep. And I will usually take one blog post or episode or piece of content, and that's kind of the master. And then I'll pull quotes and audio clips and images and more to post on social and use in email marketing. And I also repost things on social regularly, because the chances of someone seeing your social posts are so freaking low. Yep. That when the content is evergreen, it just makes life so much easier to keep generating that traffic to the same stuff you've already written. So why should business owners continue to use content that they've already created instead of killing themselves trying to come up with new content constantly?
So why wouldn't you?
Well, I agree, girl. I am there with you. I so agree.
Don't reinvent the wheel, people. I mean, you've already written all this stuff. I did a challenge one time where I made people pull out their contract and write 10 blog posts that they could write based on things they had in their contract alone.
Oh my gosh.
You could write that stuff. You could have that stuff queued up, talk about, why permits are important. Talk about, the hours that you generally do on wedding days and why, what it generally covers, whatever it is. I mean, there's so many things you can talk about and pull out of. Even, when you write a blog post, pull out 3 or 4 of those things for social media, pull them out right away and schedule them. And that, I think, is where people fall down, is they don't do it all at the same time. They think of in terms of separate things in their lives. And while a blog post might be a little bit more formal in writing, especially on the Cornerstone, you just add in a couple lines, like, show me your favorite park to get married at. I mean, it's really that easy. And you're right. I mean, it's the whole 80-20 rule. Like, only 80% of your posts get seen about 20% of the people. So I wouldn't remember if I saw the same post 6 weeks later.
Right. And it's not like you're doing it day after day after day.
No.
A lot of people, I think, don't understand that you're not posting the same blog post every day for a week. We're talking 6 months in between. People won't remember, and that's even if they saw it the first time. And I think I saw a number recently. It was like 6% of your followers see that.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
So it's so low anyway. So you may as well reach out to the other 94% that didn't see it the first time.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, repurpose stuff. It will just make your life so much easier.
Yes. And so my team, Instagram is not my favorite place. I've tried. It's just not what I love. Yeah. I think because
I'm with you.
Words. I think because it's not words. Like, I can't talk with people.
I think that's it too. Like, and I find the same thing. Like, now that I'm not a photographer, I'm like, what am I going to put a picture of?
Yes.
Yes. It needs me too. I use it, but it's definitely not my first. First.
And so one of my team members used to do all of my Instagram for me, and that's changed recently, but I would actually type out all of the captions. We keep them all in Evernote. So for every blog post, all the captions are written out and she can just pull an image and a caption. And that way it's me that has written it. So it's not like ghostwriting and stuff like that, but she has
Mm-hmm.
all of them available for her and she can just post whatever she wants, whenever she wants. And it's the same information and the same voice.
That's really smart. I mean, and that's a really inexpensive way to do it. Evernote's free, right?
Oh
A
my
lot of
gosh.
hung up on schedulers. I do use a scheduler because I like it, but
Yes.
they can add up. So that's a really great way to just plop that stuff in, keep the images in, and just switch it out. And Facebook has an online scheduler now that's
Mm-hmm.
free. You could sit down for a half an hour once a week and have everything done for a couple weeks at least.
Yes, definitely. It's so worth the time to actually have decent captions.
Totally.
What are some of the most creative ways that you've ever seen content repurposed? Like, I love your contract one. I think that so many contracts for creatives are born of problems that came up.
Totally.
Like, if you have the clause in your contract that says groomsmen cannot be inappropriate, there's a story behind that.
There's a story. Might be you might have to bring it down to make it PG, but there's a story there.
Right?
I think my other thing that I like to tell people is testimonials. Those are like freaking gold.
Oh
You
my
know,
gosh, yes.
you can use them not only in your website, you can use them in your social media, you can use them in your Instagram stories, you can use them. I used one and I shared this recently. I had a review from someone who said that I wrote them rad website copy. And
Mm-hmm.
so I took that phrase and I turned it into a CTA button. I mean, that's repurposing,
Yes.
testimonial. So testimonials can be really powerful because people tend to write quite a lot for testimonials. So you can break them down. You can take out little snippets. It's as long as you don't like reword everything, it's absolutely okay to pull out part of testimonials and not share them in full. And then just, it's a good way to brag on yourself without bragging on yourself.
Yes. And just real quick for anyone that doesn't know, it's CTA, it's a call to action. So it means taking that and saying, what I'm guessing, Kim, in your case is, yes, I want my website copy to be rad, something like that, to
Mm-hmm.
be a button.
To be a button, right? Yeah. Call to
Yeah,
action button. Yep.
that's amazing. I love that idea. And I've pulled like individual sentences and I won't change the words themselves, but to just pull one sentence out of a paragraph is absolutely okay.
Get worried about that. It's fine. It's not like stealing a photo.
No, they have given you their words to be used. And I always ask clients too if it's okay, just especially with boudoir and the intimate nature of things. But yeah,
Right.
they give you those words to be used so that you know how you affected them in a positive way.
Yeah. And if you don't have what we in the copy world call a swipe file of all the nice things people say about you, you need to do that immediately.
Yeah.
Not only will that make you feel happy on the worst days, you'll just have an easy to grab pile of like happy words to use to promote yourself.
Yes. And we've actually started even creating little videos with them for Instagram as well. But
Ooh, I love that.
um put them in Evernote, Google Doc. I don't know what the Apple equivalent is to those things, but wherever you need to save them, keep them handy, man. You can use those everywhere.
Yes.
Definitely. If you could leave listeners with one piece of advice when it comes to how to write amazing copy and content for every piece of marketing in their business, what would it be?
I would say if you struggle with writing, you need to understand that there's lots of different ways to get your words down. So one of the tricks that I will tell people that if they're like, I'm just so bad at words, as soon as my fingers hit that keyboard, I freeze up, I feel weird. Um, Google Doc and Word both have voice to text
Yes.
features. Put on your headphones and then just start blabbing into the computer. Don't look at the words as they transcribe on the page. And then when you're done, pull that apart and see what you can start with.
Yes.
Another great app that I use is called Otter AI. You use that one, Brooke?
I've never heard of it.
So
What is this new stuff?
oh, it's fabulous. It's a transcription service and it's free, and it is done by AI. So it isn't super, super accurate, but it's close enough, right?
Yeah.
And they have you can do the app on your phone, and then it's also online. So like if we were talking here, you could upload our conversation and would transcribe.
What?
Yeah, and it's free for like up to like 600 minutes a month. But what I love it for is for on my phone, I have my Otter AI. So if I think of an idea, instead of like doing it into my voice notes, I say it into the app, and then it uploads it into one spot. So if I have an idea for a post, or I see someone who's done a really interesting post and I want to steal it, I mean, modify it.
Yeah.
I just blab into my phone. I also am, weirdly enough, I tend to get big ideas in the middle of the night.
Yes. Or in the shower.
Right.
Or driving.
Yeah. Right. You can grab your phone, you can talk into it and be like, don't forget to do this, blah, 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 So there's a lot of ways you can kind of get beyond those barriers of not feeling like writing is easy for you.
Yes.
Because as soon as you start seeing little nuggets of gold in the things you're saying, I really believe it makes writing easier for people. They get more confident, they feel a little less stilted and more like themselves.
Definitely. And dare I say, this is not going to be a popular opinion, but to say that writing is difficult for you is a story that you keep telling yourself. And as long as you keep telling yourself that story, it will continue to be difficult.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, there are some people who truly do not like it. And in that case, great. Hire someone who does.
Yep.
But if you got through 8th grade English.
Yes.
Okay, you can write.
Yes.
That is not the case for math. So see, I have an excuse. But because with math, there are absolutes. With writing, people will tell me I'm a terrible writer. And I'll go and I'll look at their website and I'll be like, this is not terrible. It's maybe not interesting. It's maybe not compelling. It's maybe not converting a whole lot, but it's not terrible.
Yeah. Those are two very different things.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, I could not agree more. Do you have a service where you write copy for other businesses?
I do. It is called Red Curl Creative. And I do a lot of website copy. I do a lot of blogging. I do a fair amount of email series, landing pages, and funnels. And that's kind of more for the people that are on the educator side, people who are selling courses and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you do ghostwriting? And actually, I'm going to ask you if you can explain what that is, because some people don't know what that is.
I do. Yeah. Sometimes it's called ghostwriting. Sometimes it's called whitelisting, where someone would hire me and then publish my words as theirs. Ghostwriting is a little different because that is kind of taking someone's story and communicating it. That's usually in a book form. The other form, the whitelisting, is more where people would hire me, like say an agency would hire me and they would say, we have a copywriter on staff, but my name really wouldn't be mentioned. And then they would contract out for me.
Yes. And to be clear for everyone listening, I know this is a hot button with creatives, is it does not infringe on someone's copyright, because when someone is hired to do that for you, that is their objective.
It's their objective. And you're paid very, very well to do it.
Yes.
Any ghostwriting or whitelist writing, you are paid because you don't have an opportunity to make any money on the back end. So they generally are a lot pricier.
Yep. I am certain that you do an amazing job with your copy, but I'm also a really big fan of creatives having a foundational understanding of things before they outsource them. So if someone wanted to learn more about writing copy for themselves on their own before hiring someone else, where can they learn more and connect with you?
Well, I have a group on Facebook. It's called, I dropped my microphone. It's called Write Better Words, because I'm real creative like that, and because the URL was available. But so if you go to Facebook and just type in Write Better Words with Kim Anderson, you'll find me. Right now, we're just getting rolling. I have a beta course coming up in a few weeks, but basically, especially when the pandemic hit, a lot of people were coming to me and they were saying, using the big P word, right? Pivot. What am I going to do? How am I going to restructure my business? And I started to realize, like, a lot of these people, they need to be able to go in and update their own website copy.
Yes.
And, you think about, like, years ago, we'd buy a template, right? Like a website template, but you had no control over it. Like, you'd have to email them every time you wanted to change one little thing.
Oh my gosh, that makes me like cringe.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Back in the day, I mean, we paid $5,000 for a website, and then if you wanted to change anything, like, there was no back-end dashboard. So that's when it kind of clicked with me. Like, they can go in and change these words. They just don't feel like they can. And so, and also, they probably don't have several $1,000s right now to drop on
right.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it came from, is that I wanted to help people who felt like maybe they would like to learn more about writing. They'd learn how to flex that muscle so that they would understand that it's not as hard as you think once you have a framework.
Yes.
So that's where Write Better Words kind of came from. So Red Curl is my done for you. You hire me, you give me monies, I give you words, right? Because you don't want to do the words.
Yes.
Write Better Words is like, I want to learn to do this. I want to learn to grow. I want to improve how I sound online. So that's kind of what it is. And it's a free group, and we do just kind of fun stuff in there. And then the courses are kind of growing from there for people who want to take it to the next level.
Yes. Copywriting is so immensely important. And once, I feel like the barrier so often is sitting down in front of a blank screen. Like, that's the scary part. Once you get going, just write like you speak. It is surprisingly easy.
It is. And it's just like anything else, like in photography. I mean, you remember you used to do weddings, that the driving to the wedding was the worst part.
Yes.
Once you got there, you're like, yeah, I got this, Or a boudoir session, the first time you stepped in and helped someone look fabulous, there's always that little bit of like, can I do this?
Yes.
But I think when that goes away, that's when life gets boring for us.
Right. And then we're, especially as creatives, looking to, what can we do now?
Next thing you know, you're, meeting your high school classmates at a wedding and deciding you need to change your life.
Oh my gosh. Yes. That is so funny. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Kimberly. I so appreciate your time. Excellent copy makes my heart happy.
Oh, that's so great. I'm so glad we connected. This was so fun.
Me too. And for all of the listeners out there, if you loved this episode and you're someone that loves to help others too, can you do me a favor? Head on over to iTunes and leave a review. The reviews help me to know exactly what you need help with and how I can better serve you. And plus, I have a special freebie coming your way for anyone who has left a review. It's not quite ready yet, but it will be soon. Thank you again, Kimberly. I so appreciate you.
Thanks, Brooke. This was fun.
For all of the listeners out there, I hope that you are staying healthy and choosing joy through all of the chaos that we are going through in the world right now. And thank you so much for pressing play and spending some of your day with me. I appreciate you so much. I can't wait to see what amazing things you do with your business in the future and how you change the world a little bit at a time. Have a great day, and we will talk soon. Wow, that was fantastic information, right? Thank you so much for pressing play today, spending a little bit of time with me. Don't forget that today's episode was brought to you by Spiff Up Your Site. And don't forget to head on over to businessstraightup.com/creative websites to register for the free class and learn the 3 things that you absolutely must have on your website to actually book clients. Because you know what? It's time to say goodbye to website shame and half-ass websites. Again, the place to be is businessstraightup.com/creative websites. Thank you so much for listening to Business Straight Up. I'm so glad that you could join us today. Check out the show notes for this and all of the episodes at businessstraightupodcast.com. And I can't wait to talk with you again. Have a great day.